Welcome back, friends. Today's guest is Ali Levine, a certified breathwork practitioner, Holy Spirit breath coach, and transformation expert. Ali began her career as a celebrity stylist before embarking on a powerful personal journey that led her to become a breathwork facilitator and soul expansion coach. She's the creator of Ali, Awaken the Light Inside method, and host of the Awakening with Ali podcast, helping people align with their highest selves. Ali, thanks for coming on. And for those who don't know you, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So excited to be here. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ali. First, I am a wife and a mom of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son. And as you mentioned, I am a certified and trauma-informed breathwork coach, which I rebranded to Holy Spirit Breath because it is God-centered breathwork. And yeah, I'm all about mind, body, spirit alignment. I am all about mental wellness, helping people just thrive. I think so many people think it's fine to just stay stuck in survival mode. And as someone who went through a heavy postpartum depression and anxiety journey and a lot of trauma from my first birth with my first daughter, Amelia, I learned that that is not true, that we can thrive after we come out of trauma, and it's just about doing the work. And so I'm super passionate about that. For those that don't know, before this life, as I like to joke, I was a celebrity wardrobe stylist for 15 plus years and a confidence coach. So I help people really feel confident from the inside out and transform through their wardrobe. And now I feel like I'm doing that on a soul transformation level and a soul expansion, as you mentioned, Conrad. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Well, and yeah, when I came across your profile, I just loved your energy and just thought I need to talk to this person and hear what they're doing, and excited to dive in. So certified and trauma informed, what does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So it's so important for me to mention that because there's a lot of people who are just teaching people how to do, right? But when you're breathing in different exercises and you're really teaching people how to get into their nervous system, it's super important to be with someone who is certified and understands how trauma shows up in the body. So what that means is basically someone might get triggered by you telling them to push through a certain breath, or they might have a memory come up that they didn't even know was in their subconscious. And me being someone who has been informed of what that looks like with trauma in the body, I can stop them from going through, basically a treacherous situation if they're being pushed through, and say, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to return to our natural breath, and we're going to, just release and let you find safety. And safety is number one for me. I see a lot of coaches out there, no shame, but I see a lot just not being safe. And the nervous system, it is our operating system of the body. And so it's so important to understand that is where we hold our trauma, and we need to be aware of that and not be afraid, but just have the awareness that we are working with someone who does understand how our nervous system works, and that we're going to be in a safe space to release and get to that, thriving space from survival.
Absolutely. And you touched on one thing that you had postpartum depression. So one interesting thing to me about that is the rates of postpartum depression varies by state in the US. So Rhode Island, New Jersey, Wisconsin have the lowest at about 8-9%. And then the highest are Kentucky, Alabama, Missouri. Why do you think that this would vary by region? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I would say maybe just now that I live in Tennessee, I'm originally from New York. For those that don't know, I always joke, you can take the girl out of New York, but not New York out of the girl. So I'm a New Yorker through and through. But then we lived in California for 12 and a half years. And then now in Tennessee since 2021. And I guess from living here in Tennessee, I would say the seasonal depression for many is real. We definitely went through it this winter. It was so dark and dreary here and cold, like really colder than normal for us here in Tennessee. And we all felt it. And so when it got beautiful this week, everybody was outside every waking moment they could get, working outside, feeling the vitamin D. So I think it has a real influence on how you feel. So it kind of makes sense that those states might get hit harder.
So can you tell me a little bit more about postpartum depression?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that like a lot of places don't have as much support. When I was going through postpartum depression, to be honest, I didn't even know I was going through postpartum depression, just to be real. Like people will say those words, but you don't really realize that you're in such a dark space until you literally, for me at least, didn't know who I was. I just felt like I was in darkness. I didn't understand like why I felt so off all day long. My hormones were all over the place. One minute I was super happy, and next minute I was hysterical. I was literally sitting like super vulnerable, but sitting in a corner, chewing on my nails, like trying to figure out like what was going on, super anxious, trying to be present with my daughter, but like not knowing how to deal with myself. The idea of taking a shower was like debilitating for me, which kind of sounds crazy to say out loud, but it was true because the thought that like I had to go take a shower by myself and then worry about she might cry or she might need something or something might be happening and I was on my own was like scary for me. And all those kinds of thoughts and anxiousness just built up. And it wasn't until a good friend of mine said to me, you know, maybe there's something more going on, like a chemical imbalance or something. It's not just you being depressed because you're not really a depressed kind of person, which I'm not. I'm a pretty happy going person. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then I, you know, luckily had a team that I went to that was my birth team and they diagnosed me. And so I had pretty heavy postpartum depression. So I feel like that's the first piece is so many moms don't even know that they are going through that. And then they kind of feel crazy while they're in it and they don't even know who to turn to. My poor husband, like as amazing as Justin is, he's a guy. And he was like, well, I know my wife is not the same. I know she's off, but like, what do I do? And he kept asking me, like, what do you need? And I'm like, I don't know. I turned to him, Conrad, one night in bed and I looked at him and I said, I feel like I'm mourning the death of myself. And he goes, what? And I said, I do. I feel like I'm mourning the death of myself. And I actually felt relieved. That was the first time I felt like I was real with myself and I was like honest about how I felt. And he was mortified in the sense of like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my wife? Like, what do you mean you feel like you're mourning the death of yourself? So I feel like it can be a very complicated, you know, situation when you are going through postpartum depression. And also, you know, there's the anxiety piece, there's the depression piece. For me, it was both. For some people to get rage, like there's so many different levels when your hormones kind of go awry. So I think the first step is just the awareness and then the education and the support of like who is around you to support you. So maybe in some of those states, they just don't have that kind of support.
Absolutely. And you're an activator. What does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So it's funny, actually. So I'm very big about, obviously, about God, and I'm always in prayer. And I was working on my bio one day, and I just felt like so confused about what to put. And so I just started praying about it. And I just heard in my spirit, you're an activator. And I said, God, what? And he's, you're an activator. And so I wrote that down and I sat with it for quite a while. And then he just started speaking to me and explaining, like, I help people, I activate them into their God-given gifts. I activate them into that joy and into that place of peace in what I do and in my work and who I am. And it started to make sense to me. And I've actually had quite a few clients now confirm for me and tell me, you activate something in me. And when they use that word, I was like, this is why God said I am an activator. So all that to say, my prayer, and hope around that is that I'm activating the most, authentic version of you, the most thriving version of you, and mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. So let's say that I'm your client. We sit down. Where would we start? And I'm assuming you do a lot of work online. How would you start to work with me? Would we talk about maybe get into some of the things that I've went through? Would we go straight into breath work?
Yeah, super good question. So I always do a free consult call with everybody first, just to really see where are you in this process? For some people, they've already done some healing work. For some people, they have no idea that they need healing work and they have a lot of trauma and a lot of situations that are going to come up. So for me, safety is first. So it's okay, have you done breath work before? If the answer is no, we're going to start really slow and we're going to make sure your nervous system can handle it. And we can really just tell that by doing a few deep activating breaths and how you feel by doing that. And then if you've done it before and you tell me you have, I'm going to ask you kind of what you've done. Has it been someone who's been trauma informed? Because unfortunately, a lot of times I get clients who actually come to me and essentially kind of want me to fix the fact that they were pushed so hard through their trauma that now they're more traumatized, which I hate to say, but it happens. And so then I'm helping them really get back to safety and just relaxed in their nervous system, feeling safe. Because most of us take about 30,000 breaths a day. Now, and it could be 20,000 to 30,000, depending on the person. I'll just say that. Some more athletic, some more doing more. They're going to breathe more. But we're within that 20,000 to 30,000 space. And I bring that up because most of those breaths for all of us are very shallow breathing. They're not those deep breaths in and out that are going to actually, they're going to actually rejuvenate you. They're going to activate you. They're going to align you in your mind, body, and spirit. Most of us are not breathing that way. And neither was I until I learned this work. So the reason for saying that is because most of us live in a sympathetic nervous system. And all that means is that you are in fight or flight. Your body is not necessarily in the most calm place. You're maybe triggered by certain things that go on around you. You're anxious, you're stressed. It's just the norm. We live in a social media, hello, we're on here right now doing a podcast. We live in a social media bubble. We are constantly triggered and have constant sensory around us and, in our space at all the time. So it's easy for us to get into that sympathetic nervous system. And for some, they go past fight or flight and they're in like a functioning freeze where they don't realize like they're actually pretty much frozen in their body, but they're just kind of functioning in this like, oh, I'm just kind of going along, but I don't really know what's happening. And that's a real functional freeze. And that's, a much deeper trauma in the body. But when we take these deep breaths that I'm speaking of and you bring yourself back to homeostasis, that's the parasympathetic nervous system. And that brings your entire body back to rest and digest. And what's beautiful about that is it's not just about those deep breaths. It's about how it resets you. It resets, your circular system. It resets, your brain. It resets your cells, your oxygenation, your mitochondria, and your gut. Like it resets everything because the nervous system, as I said in the beginning, it's your operating system of your body. So I think a lot of people don't realize like it sounds kind of simple, but it's really so intense in that when that is junked up or that's not working, everything else is kind of going to go awry. So it goes back to the nervous system health. Once we get that in homeostasis, which I love to say, come home to yourself through the breath and you get back to that way God designed you because that is the way he expected us to breathe. I truly believe because I look at having babies and I know you guys have, lots of people around you have children. And when you look at when a baby is born, they breathe deep into their belly and into their chest and out. And that is the way we're kind of naturally made to breathe. And then we forget about that as we go along in life. So, going back to your question, where do we start? We start with where is your current breath? Do you hold your breath during the day? Are you shallow breathing? Do you even do any deep breathing? Do you conscious of your breath? Like we start there. Once I know where you are with your current situation, then I start to say, okay, I'm going to show you a few key deep breaths and how to breathe. Then we're going to start to get into why do you feel like maybe you need nervous system work? Are you going through something traumatic? Did you experience something traumatic? And obviously, make sure the person feels vulnerable and safe in the space with me. But then I ask them to open up and be pretty vulnerable about where are they in the process. So I can help them start to heal and start to release what they're holding, because that's usually the key to getting to the other side and not only getting into that deep in breath, but releasing the trauma that is in the body. So it's quite a process, but it begins in the basics and then we kind of build from there. And I don't, like I said, I'm trauma informed, so I don't push anybody. I start slow and then we kind of progress from there.
I love it. Well, at the end, I would love to do even just a minute of breathing with you.
I'm down. I'm always down to do breath work, always.
We can do it at the end and maybe have people follow along. I think that'd be wonderful. And one thing you touched on and I see in your work, so the gastrointestinal system is often called the second brain, right? Because of its connection to mood, stress, mental clarity, right? The gut-brain axis or gut-brain connection.
Yes, I love that you know that because a lot of people don't even know what that is.
Yeah. And so how has your work and breath work and activation helped people improve this gut-brain balance? And do you see a link between these two things?
Yeah, I love that you asked this question. It's huge. It's true. It's like we're taught about our brain, which is great, but we're not taught about our gut brain, and it is the second brain. And if they're not in sync, if they're not in coherence, there can be quite a bit of lack between our hormones aren't balanced, our moods can be off. A lot of times I tell clients, like, they're like, I don't know what's with my thoughts. And I'm like, but maybe they're not actually your thoughts. Maybe everything is so junked up and so imbalanced that needs healing first before you do anything else with actually rewiring your subconscious. Because that is something I work on with people as they do go deeper in breath work. But before we even go there, I ask them, like, do you know, like, do you have a healthy gut? Most people, they have no idea. Most of us are eating, unfortunately, toxic food and surrounded by toxic air and all the things around us. So it's kind of a given. So that's where I start. So it's a really good question. When I work with people on that gut-brain connection, and I have a personal partnership that I work with a company called Amare that's called Happy Juice. They're the #1 mental wellness company. And the reason I'm a partner with them is because I personally tried their product because I wanted to experience the deeper gut healing myself before I could recommend it. And I was blown away, even after doing so much healing work over the years, how much more my body was just in a better place and my hormones were more balanced and my mood just went completely shifted and my thoughts overall shifted and just so much clarity. A lot of people experience brain fog. I went through heavy brain fog, especially after having babies. I think a lot of moms do. I think fathers do also. And it helped me lift that completely and bring clarity to me. So I do think that there's a divine connection when it comes to the gut-brain axis connection and our nervous system, and that needs to be cleared up in order to get to the other side. I actually said to a client yesterday who has been struggling, and she's been working on her nervous system, and she's getting somewhere, but she's just not getting over the hump. And I said to her, I know you really weren't keen on trying supplements, and so no pressure, but I'm really feeling nudged that you need to try this, because if there is more of an actual inner healing that needs to happen in that gut-brain axis connection, we're only going to be able to do so much work through the breath. And we need to actually use, holistic supplements and get to the root, the root bears fruit, get to the root of what's going on so we can get you fully over that hump. And so now she's considering, trying it. So yeah, I do think that whatever it is that, whether it be, Happy Juice or a different product that you're using, if it's for the gut brain and really for gut health, that's going to make a huge difference when it comes to things like your mood and your clarity and brain fog you might be experiencing. And on a deeper level, just helping you thrive, helping you feel better in general, right? I think we all really want to feel more peaceful and just more blissful in general, right? And not feel like we're just in survival mode 24/7. And I feel like we're finally coming out of this fog after 2020, in my opinion, everything went on with COVID, where people were just kind of accepting like that this is kind of what it is and this is how I feel and the world's kind of upside down, because it was. And it's like we're coming out of that. And at the same time, I feel like we're coming out of this post-trauma situation where it's like we're here in 2025, but did we actually ever process what went on in 2020? And that's why so many people are in survival mode right now and their nervous systems are in such bad shape. And so, yeah, it's so important that we work on that as well.
Absolutely. And you obviously have done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people and have a great perspective. Could you take us through just a day in your life? How are you optimizing yourself? When are you doing your breath work? When do you wake up? I know you have children. How do you balance that? Just high level, can you take us through how you optimize your day?
I'm laughing because I'm like, every day is different. Because that's just what I'm like. I want to be real about that, because I think it's so easy online to like see someone like, oh my gosh, they're doing all these things. And it's like, yeah, right. in that square that you see me in, that's what I'm doing. But like, you're not seeing the chaos going on in my home behind me. I have a wood sign in my house that says embrace the chaos. And I think it's important that when, I'm a mom of 3, I have almost 7, almost 5 and a 2. So I have littles, and I don't care, what age they are, but I think it's so important as a mom, especially, or a dad, to embrace that chaos and to be like, enjoy in it as much as you can be, because it is going to affect how your nervous system is reacting. And that's going to actually regulate how or not regulate your children. I tell moms all the time, it's so important that we regulate so we can co-regulate our household, our nervous system, and, that energy that we feel, it's real. And if our kids are in chaos and we're in chaos, they're feeding off of that. If you're peaceful and you're calm and you're learning how to regulate your emotions, they're learning the same. So in answer to your question, like I said, every day is different. But for me in the morning, I start out with prayer. I always start the morning with gratitude. I thank God for the day. I thank God for the breath in my lungs. I just started out in a place of gratitude. I usually journal for a couple minutes, and then I'll do a few moments of breath work, depending on how fast my children are getting into my bedroom to come get me. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes, just depends. And then we kind of start our day after I do that. I get the kids breakfast, and I'm also a homeschooling mom. So I have my children home, kind of in and out between their pods and things that they do. So, we're home, we're at the kitchen table in the morning. We usually actually put on the armor of God. I teach my children how to armor up spiritually, and we go through that. I read usually a scripture from the Bible, and then we start our day. And my kids love it because they feel like it sets them up in like a good space. Then we usually will dance a little bit and listen to some music, usually worship music. They will take a few deep breaths with me. I'll encourage them to breathe. My son's a little too young, but my 2 girls. And they've actually been doing really well with it. And they actually will remind me if I have a day where I wake up and my phone's ringing and I'm off, they'll be like, Mom, we have to breathe and we have to do this. And I love that they are regulated and they get it and they see the benefit, So that's usually the morning. And then kind of from there, my husband works from home. So I'm able to kind of have a little bit of support when it comes to my podcast and creating content and all that, which is great. So usually the kids will play on their own, do independent play. He'll kind of check in on them. I'll do some content work in the morning. If I have a group that I'm with, like I just finished a group I was working with, so I'd be on with them in the morning, teaching them breath work, going through my container with them in that program. And then usually I sign off for a little bit, go be with them, play, do a little bit of homeschool work, and then kind of get outside. If it's nice out, we go, play or go for a walk. If it's not nice out, usually go hit the gym, take them with me and let them play with their friends there. And then I go get a good workout in, come back, do a little bit more work. And then, kind of get into the family life. And then usually by the evening, I'm back into work. So it's very much a broken day as far as the schedule goes. I always say we're in harmony over here. We don't have a real balance. I had to learn how to throw that out the window when it came to motherhood and working from home. But the beauty is, my clients get that. And, being able to do business online and create content and do things kind of, on the fly on my phone is also kind of nice that I'm not having to worry. And then I set a schedule for myself for creating content as well as like kind of batching things that I'm going to post over the week. And that's the thing actually I want to talk about really quick since you're bringing this up. I want people to think about when they are on social media, like really tune into your nervous system. Like, how do you feel when you're on there too long? I can tell you most of my clients feel terrible. And it's something I actually work on with them on a detox program of when we start my program. It's like, you're not going to start your phone in the morning when you wake up. You're not going to have it for the first 20, 30 minutes, which I don't either. And, you're not going to have it for the last 20, 30 minutes before you go to bed. And you're going to take breaks from being on your phone and notice how you feel. And I think it's really important to mention that because we live in such a social media, world and bubble. And I had to learn, even for me, Conrad, with like posting content, that I can't live on here all day long and like post and stay and engage and be here I have to get off for my sanity and to be a mom and be present. And I need to be okay with scheduling and not being there for like things to happen live and just trust that things will get out there the way they do. And then I will catch up and see the messages. I will see what's going on and get back to my business. And I think that's really important when we think about nervous system health.
100%. And one thing you said I need to touch on, you said embrace the chaos. And I love that. I think so much of life is how do you respond to things and what do you choose to let bother you? And of course, there are really bad things that happen in life sometimes, but what would you say to someone who is struggling to embrace the chaos? What's the first step?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, that's true. I would just say, like, just grounding yourself. Like, can you get outside and just put your feet on the ground, even if it's cold? Like, I will do that. It helps me so much just get my feet on the ground barefoot and just feel the earth and just like how healing that is and what, the actual like electrons are doing from the ground into your body. Just ground. And like, I would just say, like, find what you're grateful for. It's easier said than done. But when I was going through postpartum depression and anxiety, one of the first things that my coach took me through was writing down every day 3 things I was grateful for. And I'll be real, I was grateful for nothing. That sounds terrible, but I really was. I was so mad and so angry and so upset that I felt so dark and felt like a shell of a human. I didn't know who I was and I hated how my body looked. And I had all these like horrible negative lists of things that I felt like, what am I grateful for? And she looked at me and she goes, you're grateful that you have a new baby. You're grateful that, you were able to, bring her through after having a traumatic birth. Like, you're grateful that, you can get up out of bed. Like, and it sounds silly, but it was like these little things that it was like, oh yeah, I am grateful for that. And so like writing those things down started to really make a shift for myself. And to be honest, after that, I started doing mirror work. For those that don't know what that is, like you look in the mirror and you speak out, whether you're like declaring, decreeing, or you're doing affirmations, or maybe you're speaking out what you're grateful for. But there's something really real about looking yourself in the eye and looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, I am grateful for this. And then having to see yourself when you say it and be like, ooh, yeah, okay, I should be grateful for that, huh? Like there's a lot of people who don't have that situation, right? And so I think just those simple things of like grounding and gratitude are where I would start. And then from there, you can work on taking those deep breaths. You can work on prayer. You can work on other things. But for me, even before prayer and all that came along, it was just being able to get grounded and have gratitude.
And how do you view intergenerational trauma? Is that treated differently?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, so I would say I definitely, for that, I always advise that I'm working with someone one-on-one and not in a group space because usually a lot comes up for them and they just need a lot more security and to feel more safe and seen when they're in it. And I usually have to help them go through deeper meditative processes with rewiring their subconscious. So speaking to them, who they truly are versus what they're holding and what they're seeing. And it can be quite a process of unraveling. So it's quite vulnerable. And I ask them to do it one-on-one with me and to expect kind of deeper sessions in that space because, yeah, a lot comes up. And I also look for how are they acting when they're breathing? Like sometimes I've had a client that had a lot of that going on with different family stuff and things that have just kind of been locked in from family and stories that, were just held on in the body that she believed that weren't true. And I'm getting emotional because I've had quite a few clients that have experienced this. And it's really just letting them feel seen and feel held and know that I'm there for them and I'm helping them through this process. I'm not going anywhere. And there's also no judgment and no shame. And just taking them through and watching as we breathe. Like if they are triggered and they stop and they go, Ali, okay, I can't do it. It's like, okay, we're going to come out of that entire space. We're going to talk about what's coming up. Like why can't you, breathe through this right now? And sometimes it just means that we're done with the breath work for that day. And I find other somatic work, soma means body, and I find other ways for them to squeeze or to go against the wall and push against the wall in certain ways to release the trauma that's sitting in their body. And I help them work in different ways to really get into the body, but still in a safe space, and then also rewire their subconscious of what's going on.
My cousin and co-founder, Jack, quick shout out to Jack Ukropina, great guy. You'll meet him someday. He does Wim Hof breathwork every day. He swears by it. And he pairs breathwork with a cold shower. But quick two-part question for you. One, just what do you think of Wim Hof? And two, what do you typically pair with your breath work for maximum efficacy?
Yeah, good question. So I love Wim Hof. I don't think he is for everyone. I think he would agree with that as well. He's very intense. I tell a lot of women who try his breath work and YouTube that freak out. I'm like, that's okay. He's very intense and he wants to be. That's his audience. Like he wants that intensity. He knows that intensity is going to get you essentially results. But what I personally teach from being certified and trauma informed is that it doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a different method. But for me, and maybe just more of my clientele, which are parents and moms and that sort of thing, they need a softer approach and they need safety. And it's kind of the opposite because Wim Hof really pushes you through the experience with your breath and the intensity in your breath. And I think that it can be great with intensity. And I think other time for some people, it can be very traumatizing. And so I tell everybody, it depends on what you're really going through. There are times where I have clients who are looking for more of an activation and more energy. And so I'll teach them more intense breaths to help them get more energy and get going throughout the day. And then there's a lot of other types of breath work I teach that are to release stress and anxiety, like the 4-7-8 breath, or the 4-4-4 box breathing, which like a ton of Navy SEALs do in military, and they help their heart coherence come more together and align together, So I think there's different types that are important depending on what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And I think maybe for your first time, if you've never done breath work, Wim Hof might be a little bit intense for the nervous system when it comes to, that kind of, but for guys love it. Like I have some guys that work with me that are like, oh, this is a little too soft for me, Ali. And I'm like, okay, I know how to get more intense. All right, you told me I could show you. But then like some people are like, no, I really want softer and more grounded and more meditative, depending on what they're going through. So again, I think Wim Hof's great. I think he's amazing at what he's done and what he's created. And I love that Jack pairs it with the cold because yes, the cold is massive, the cold plunge. I do the same in the shower. I'll start hot and then I'll switch to cold in my last few minutes to really just bring that intensity and breathe through it. And I always advise everybody to do that, if they can handle it. I even tell my clients, hey, when you take a shower, like for 30 seconds to a minute, just let yourself, just hit that cold. And they're like, oh, are you crazy? And I'm like, I know it takes work, but you got to just like breathe through it, right? So cold plunges are phenomenal for that, definitely. And then I would say for me, when it comes to just creating the efficacy and really more of that breakthrough and what they're going through, it's just teaching them how to land more in their body. And what I mean by that is the deeper they can get in their breath. Now, don't confuse deepness with intensity, but just the more they can get into the body and get out of the mind, the more they're going to get to the breakthrough, the more that they're going to be able to move from that breakdown to that breakthrough. Either it's only one session with me or it's several sessions. That's where they're going to really start to see it. The people that I see kind of get teetering or get stuck, they're not deepening in the body. It's because they don't have that trust. And that's okay. It's something they have to work on. And I maybe have to work on with them as well. But you have to really kind of have this leap of faith when you are surrendering to your body. Because what happens when we breathe deeply, and you guys know this from Wim Hof, but within 90 to 120 seconds of deep breathing, our neuroreceptors in the back of our brain actually start to shut off. And what that means is we go into a, kind of a theta gamma wave state, which is a meditative state. And it's a little bit more open state, and you're a little more floaty and a little more vulnerable, which is great because you can reset easier. But it also is a little bit more vulnerable in the sense that, oh, wow, I don't maybe like this feeling right now. So I'm going to kind of take myself out. And then that's where sometimes some people kind of stop their own, breakthrough. And I tell people, I'm like, okay, that's fine. We're just going to kind of backtrack and see why maybe you stopped it. Did something else come up? Is there trauma that needs to be worked through? And for some, they're just fearful. They just have to go, back into it. So again, I feel like it's not a one size fits all, but I do encourage everybody to try breath work, no matter whether it's me you're working with or using Wim Hof or doing someone else. As long as you know that they know what they're doing, which is most important, I think breath work is so powerful. Our breath is literally within us. And I truly believe it's the most powerful tool there is when it comes to healing in the body. And I think there's a reason why God gave it to us, not just to, survive and shallow breathe, but to actually thrive and use it as the tool that it is. So I encourage everyone to at least try it.
My cousin would very much agree with you. And a lot of what you do targets the whole body. And what % of our bodies do you think we even fully understand at this point?
Oh gosh, I feel like we're all kind of just having this awakening to be so real. Even as someone who is a coach and is gone through years of work and training, even I'm still learning things. Like there'll be something that'll happen and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like they're holding their breath that way. And that's actually an actual like trauma response. And I didn't even know that. And I'll go back to like one of my teachers and I'll be like, well, it's not the norm, but like it is something that sometimes some people will do. And it's like this percentage. And I'm like, oh, wow, well, that makes sense because their brain shut off and that's like the next thing that their body goes to. And so all that to say, like, I feel like it's, we're all learning. We're going through this, hence my podcast, Awakening with Ali. We're going through this like deep awakening, I feel right now, just in our world where we're starting to question like, hey, is that really good for me? And should I be doing that? And does that actually make me feel good? And am I going to feel positive after that experience? Or am I not going to feel good after I eat that or drink that or whatever it is? And I feel like we're starting to ask questions like, why do I feel the way I feel? Or why do I act the way I act? Or why does that trauma trigger me? Or whatever it might be, or why am I stressed out? Or, whatever the question is. And I feel like from that, there's a deeper awakening of like, how can I do better in my life? How can I change how I show up? So I am the best version of myself. So I am thriving, right? And not surviving. So I honestly feel like we've only just scratched the surface of understanding the fullness of our bodies. Even for me, like I said, like just being a coach and everything, I'm learning consistently every day, which I feel like you should be. But I also notice like something will come up and I'm like, oh, wow, like that's fascinating to me. I didn't know there were that many vertebrae, in the back for that reason, that how it ties into the frequencies of your body. Like there's just so much. I feel like our body is that divine temple, that, true sacred space. And we maybe for a long time kind of like just wrote it off as like, oh, it's just like my vehicle I operate in. But it's like, no, it's so much more than that. And we have to be nourishing and treating it that way.
And I have anxiety. Everyone has anxiety. If someone is nervous about something, right? Maybe a job interview is coming up, a relationship, maybe you're not making enough money that you'd want to at this point. What would you recommend they do to start working through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think anxiety is unfortunately, so normal. It's become, just one of those things that we all have, I think, kind of normalized. Like, oh, this is just something I have. And like, I'm just anxious. And of course, that is true to a point, but it's also not our natural state of being. We don't come into this world anxious. We come into this world actually full of joy and light. And then over time, the world kind of takes us over and we start to feel an anxiety. So to that point, getting back to the basics of who we are as children of God, as divine design as we come in. And so it's like, okay, how do I get back to that? I start to find my grounding. I start to feel gratitude for what's going on. For me, example, I would say when I'm anxious about something, instead of going to the problem and the fear around what's going on and that anxious moment, I do the opposite. And I'm like, okay, what's going well right now? What's a good thing that's happening right now? And I start to write that down. So I get into a spiral of positivity and I start to rewire the way I'm feeling. Now, I didn't used to do this at all. I used to totally spiral in my anxious thoughts. But over the years, from my own, mentorship programs I went through and learning, and then my own coaching programs to get certified and work in what I work in now, I had to do the work, right? In order to be able to work with other people. So I started to learn like, okay, I have to do the work. I have to look at when I spin out, why am I spinning out? What is triggering me? Okay, usually we're fearful. Like what's in front of us that we're fearful right now? And, just to go to the Bible, it literally says fear not 365 times. So there's a reason for that. And I've learned that over the years. And so it's like, how can I come back into faith? How can I start to be grounded in that and say, what are the good things that are happening right now? What can I trust right now? What feels safe right now? And start to move into that. And then really just, start to feel that goodness as you start to write down what's making you feel good or say out loud. It's like, oh, okay, I don't feel so anxious anymore. My heart isn't racing as much now. Maybe I can take a few deep breaths in and out. And then after I do a few deep breaths, then I can do some affirmations. Like that's what I always recommend for clients and for myself, and saying out loud, that I am safe, that I am grateful, that, I am protected, and just simple things. And it sounds really simple, but it starts to rewire your brain. And then the next time that happens, you don't necessarily react the same way. And then you start to see like, oh, wow, there's growth. Like the same situation is happening to me, because it will, but I'm not reacting the same, right? And so that's a huge part. How you said earlier, Conrad, like you're all about like, how do you react to something? It's true. It's like, how is your nervous system reacting to what's happening? How is your mind reacting to what's happening? That needs to be in sync. As we work on that, the more we can shift then the anxiety that is coming up, because anxiety and stress will come back. But how are you going to show up and handle it? That's the difference. And then it's not going to take you over. That test that comes that was originally taking you down and then took you down for a week, like guilty, years ago, something had happened. I'd be like, I can't get out of bed. I'm depressed. Like that, that took me out. Now it's like it happens and I'm like, okay, a couple minutes later, I'm good. I'm going to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to have to scream for a moment. But I'm moving through. Right. And so I think that's just the basics of starting with how to handle anxiety. And then I think on a deeper level, it's really just understanding that you do have that authority to change your thoughts. You have that authority to change the frequency of what you're feeling. You can allow yourself to feel consumed by negativity and by those lower density feelings, or you can bring yourself up higher into a higher frequency and allow gratitude to take you over, so that no matter what is going on, you stay in that place of peace.
Absolutely. And one thing I just think is so fascinating is this physical connection to the world around us. And one example that I always think of is in childbirth, after having a kid, women's brain chemistry literally changes. So the gray matter, which is linked to some emotional processing, actually shrinks, which helps mothers focus on the baby's needs, and your white matter increases, which strengthens your neural networks and maternal instincts and problem solving to help protect your child, effectively hardwiring your brain for parenthood. How have your kids changed your perspective on this, and how have they influenced your work?
Well, I love you broke all that down, because I think so many don't even understand that. So it's awesome that you do. So first off, I think, I think it's a shock to our system as moms. Nobody tells us, like I say to everybody, whenever a mom comes to me, it's like, I'm so excited to have my baby. What advice do you have for me? Like, what products should I get? And I'm like, if I could be real with you, I'd give you a million products, but I would be doing you a disservice. You need to know how much things are going to change, not to bring fear, but to bring awareness so that you can get support and you can understand what you're going to go through. And I say that because I think so many moms don't know that's what actually happens chemically and hormonally, and what actually changes within us. Children have shown me they actually teach me lessons every day. And that if I tune in and I'm, paying attention to them, what they're saying, and I'm present, I'm actually gaining so much from being around them. Like my middle one, Arlie, she cracks me up because she's probably my most spiritual and like most in touch. And she'll say things to me like, look at the sky. And I'll be like, yeah, it's so pretty. And she'll be like, but you notice, like, look at all the colors and look at, like God's painting, and I'm like, oh yeah. And she'll be like, and do you see, this rainbow over here? And like, I wouldn't even have noticed it. All that to say, like, I wasn't fully present in what she was showing me. Meanwhile, she's like enthralled in everything that's there. And so I feel like my kids teach me continuously how to be present, how to process emotions. They call me out constantly, which I sometimes hate, but also love. Because it shows me that they're embodied in what I'm teaching them. And also sometimes, I'm not going to lie, triggers me. And I'm like, yes, you're right. Just being real. It was funny the other day, like I was having a moment. I got a lot of stressful phone calls, and I was also getting the kids out of the car, and there was just a lot going on. And I was like trying to manage it, and I didn't breathe, and I was just like frustrated, and I was truly like stamping my foot, and I was like breathing heavily. And my daughter comes over and she goes, Mom, use your tools, breathe, like smile, and it was so cute, and I looked at her and
Amazing.
part of me wanted to be like, whack, it's like, I'm like, are you kidding me? But I was so proud of her. And I'm like, you're right. Okay. And they were like, we'll do it with you. I was like, okay, great. We all sat down, I did some breathing, and we were smiling. That's another thing too. I always say, like, put a smile on your face, and we just like relaxed into it, and the body relaxes with you. It's so interesting when you take these deep breaths and you talk about the physical body and you smile, your whole demeanor changes. Your shoulders drop, your heart stops racing, your face relaxes, your jaw relaxes. And all of a sudden you've gone from this like tight, fight or flight and squeeze to like, I'm in a good space. So I would just say it's like a learning process every day when it comes to motherhood. But my kids have really been teaching me, just so deeply how to have my emotions regulated so I can regulate me and then co-regulate with them. And then I guess on a deeper level, it's just really understanding that motherhood is really like a dance. And it really is all about like embracing the chaos. And some days are going to be so in flow and so magical. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was like today we were outside playing and it was just like so much fun. But again, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice outside. Like, let's go like do this before I have to get on this podcast and let's hang out. And they were like having so much fun. We had a little mini ice cream party and it was great. But then like yesterday, everybody was screaming. And so it's like, and it was the same beautiful weather, and so sometimes it's just understanding that like our kids have so many emotions and they're also going through so much as they grow and learn. And something I've been learning and teaching them is like, I get more inquisitive now. Whereas I used to snap, like I kind of laugh at the mom that I was with my first daughter, Amelia. I joke, I'm like, sorry, honey, you got the most stressed out, high cortisol, like, totally drained adrenals, just shell of a mom. When I first had my first daughter, because I was just rocked and I had no idea how to handle anything. And by the time now I have my son, I joke, I'm like, you have the most peaceful, calm mom. And even with Arlie, I was so much more calm. And I reflect and I look at that and I'm like, but that's also growth because I've learned how to navigate the different situations that come up from, my first daughter to now, my third child. And it's interesting, even with that, like, for example, the other day, there was a bunch of stuff happening and they were screaming. And the old Ali would have like triggered and like screamed back. I would have gotten frustrated and been like, why are you screaming? Calm down. And now I'm learning how to be more inquisitive. Like, I'm like, okay, so what's going on? What made you start screaming? Like, what's happening? What changed? And if they can't answer me, then I've learned to just sit down and start to ground my energy and my body. And usually, for the most part, all of a sudden, the room will calm. They will calm down and they'll come and sit next to me and join in. And they won't understand why they're doing that, but it's essentially that energy is contagious and they are like, mom's regulated. So like, I'm going to regulate, and they'll sit down and then I can ask them what's going on, what happened and how can we fix this for the next time so that you're not screaming and you're choosing to use your tools. And for my kids, I've been teaching them to like, sometimes they don't want to breathe. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. Instead, like close your eyes and squeeze, your fist, somatic work, squeeze. And, squeeze into the body and see that everything is red right now because you're frustrated, you're angry, whatever it is, and get down to seeing green, red, yellow, green. Once you're at green, now let's have a conversation about what's going on. So there's a lot of tools you can use, even with kids when it comes to teaching them that nervous system regulation.
Yeah, I feel like that's the classic wait 10 minutes when you're mad before yelling. And
yeah,
I find it even works in business too, when people say something that might be a little bit demeaning or disrespectful, just pausing and just being okay with the silence for a second.
It is.
I feel diffuses things.
You're 100% right. So many people want to just react. And I feel like we're kind of taught to do that. And you're 100% right. It's like, can you just take that pause for that moment, that silence, just let everybody kind of reflect on what just happened before everything blows up. And then we can come back to a more peaceful state and everybody's already been brought down, right? Because everybody's here when things are heightened and nothing's going to happen once you're heightened. It's like that's, and it's all, and a lot of time when you go actually back to like real brain health, which the front lobe shuts off. Like there's no more like hearing anybody. There's no more understanding like what's happening in that situation. You're just hot. So you're red and you blocked out anything that they're going to say anyway. So the best thing you can do, is take a pause, take a deep breath, and then reconvene and let yourself. I tell my almost 7-year-old the same thing because she's in a state right now, so much fun, where she doesn't want to breathe because she gets frustrated by it. I don't want to breathe. I don't want to use that tool. And I'm like, okay, it's triggering you right now. I get that. I love you, but like, it helps you, but like, you're not into it right now. Fine. So I just tell her, I'm like, if you can't use your tools, walk away. Go walk away from the situation with your brothers and sister, walk away from mama and daddy, and come back to us when you're ready to have a conversation. So that's been working for her lately, because she doesn't want to breathe as often as she used to, because she's in that state where she's independent and, of course knows all the things. Mommy knows nothing. So she walks away and, takes a beat, which is good for both of us. And then she comes back, and we have a conversation. So obviously everybody's different. My Arlie is way more about breathing, and she likes to meditate, and she likes to center herself, and she likes to sit on the ground. So that's her personality. So everybody's personality is different.
Are things getting worse? Are people getting more stressed and more sick?
I think so, unfortunately. I think, and I hate to I am so not a doom and gloom, but I do feel because of COVID, I feel like people got there. Well, I feel like, okay, let me take it 2 steps. One, there was an awakening for many where people took back their power in many ways, including their health. And they figured out how to double down on how to get healthier, how to work on their immune system, work on their gut health, work on their nervous system, and just thrive and find activities that help them thrive and hobbies that help them thrive and all those different things. And then you had the other side who didn't understand what was going on. I don't think anybody of us did, but there was a huge part of the population who didn't understand what was going on. They essentially allowed the depression, the anxiety, the scarcity, everything going on to take them over. And a part of them is still living in that kind of that bubble of fear, and they don't know how to move past it. And from that fear, I believe, is feeding into the body and creating more anxiousness, more stress, and then, essentially heightening their cortisols, draining their adrenals, all the things that we need to be thriving in our body, and they're not. And they're getting sicker from it, because fear breeds sickness. If someone, if you're out and about and you're fearful, of getting sick, most likely you're going to get sick. It's just the way it works. Even if you are doing all things to stay not sick, you're most likely going to, because your mind is that powerful. Our thoughts are that powerful, and our words are that powerful. And I think that's another part is people don't really believe that. My family and I, we joke all the time because I'm the black sheep of my family in many ways. And my parents are like, okay, Ali. And I'm like, I'm serious. Watch your words. I correct them constantly. And I love them to death, but they don't get it. And they get frustrated by me saying, your words are that powerful. Your thoughts are that powerful. But I mean it, because I want them to understand, if you knew the authority you actually had, you wouldn't say the things that you say thinking it's not a big deal, or you wouldn't think the things you think thinking it wouldn't do anything. So I think, yes, people are getting sicker. I think people are getting more stressed out. I also think because of social media and whatever you want to call that's out there now, I don't call it news, but the propaganda machine, I guess, of whatever is running, I think it affects people deeply. And I think people get really, worked up by what they see. I get so many text messages from clients all day long. Like, oh my gosh, you see this today? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what do you mean you didn't see it? And I'm like, I check out. If something massive is happening, I'm going to find out. Okay. It's going to happen. I'm going to find out. And there's certain things I might check into if I have, a friend flying or something's happening or whatever, and I'm checking on what's going on. But overall, I don't allow the social media bubble, the propaganda bubble, all the things online to consume. And that was something I'll share. In 2020, my husband and I made the conscious decision to unplug from the news and the television. And we actually didn't bring any of it back until basically 2024, because we just felt so much more free in not having that on and not being connected to that. And I just remember in 2020, whenever you turned on any news station, it was there's the death ticker, in the corner of the screen. And it's what is that doing for anyone other than letting you know how many people are actually dying? You're just bringing more anxiety, more stress, and more fear. And so I think people have become almost complacent in a way to, this is just the norm. I'm going to feel this way. I'm going to be stressed out. There's nothing I can do. And, I'm just going to stay here. It kind of reminds me of talking about kids of Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. How he's just always that's just how it is. Oh, I'm just so solemn. And they don't realize that by having that attitude, it's actually making them sicker. It's making them more stressed out and more anxious. So yeah, it's a long answer to your question, but I do think that a lot of people unfortunately are. But I think the other side of that, there are a lot of people who are actually trying to take their power back and change it. And I actually have really good feeling about overall where we're going. I think we're going to move into a lot of darkness, unfortunately, before that. But I do feel we're going to come out on the other side, and people are going to be wanting to get healthier and wanting to change their habits to live longer and actually thrive in mind, body, and spirit.
So moving forward, we're going to go to a speed round, my favorite thing. So I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then you're just going to give me a one-word answer.
One word. Oh gosh, I talk. Okay, sure.
As best you can. As best you can. It'll be fun. So we'll start easy. Cats or dogs?
Oh gosh, dogs. As you hear my dog, I'm sure you just barked. Oscar, my dog. Yes.
Cute. If breathwork gave you a superpower, what would it be?
Activation.
What's your funniest health influencer moment?
Gosh, that's not a quick answer. Funniest health influencer moment. Oh my gosh, that's so not quick. Funniest moment.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, probably like when I was explaining one time at my mental wellness company, I was talking on a story, and I literally fogged out of what I was saying, and I was just discussing about how clear I felt and how I had no brain fog, and then I fogged out.
Classic. What's your favorite food?
Lobster.
Yum. What's the wildest message you've gotten on social media?
Are we talking weird sexual message, or are we talking just weird in general?
Gosh, I know you have a family. I hope there aren't too many weird sexual things. Gosh, I guess the internet's a weird place.
I mean, I get all the weird, can I have a picture of your foot? Can I have a picture of this? Can I be your sugar dad? I get that literally every day. I'm not even kidding. I wish it wasn't true. Every day I joke with my husband, I'm like, if we ever need cash, I would never do it.
Yeah.
I always never need cash. I have all these men in my DMs for ready to Venmo me, as long as I can send them a foot picture or something like that. So yeah, that's probably one of the weirdest. Other than that, I've had on the spiritual side, I've had people reach out to me and ask me to help them because they have a family member who they feel is demonic or something crazy in that way. And I usually honestly just pray for them and usually send them back a really deep scripture or something to help them. But they'll usually people feel very open with me. I guess just my energy, the way I am. So sometimes not surprised when I get those kind of messages that give me a full page or how long the DM will allow them to send me of their life and their story and then what's happening and how they need help. So I usually just send them a prayer because I really don't, know what to say to a perfect stranger who literally just unloaded their entire life onto me. And I mean that in the most love. But it is sometimes a little strange, when people feel that open and vulnerable that I don't know them at all. And they feel like they can literally tell me their entire love story. But at the same time, I guess it's a gift because they feel comfortable to share that with me.
And if you could set the time for Sunday church service, what would be the optimal time?
Oh my gosh. I would say probably 1, 2 o'clock, afternoon. I feel the morning, we have an 8, a 9:30 and 11. And some of the crew, we always no matter which one we choose to go to, we're always running late and make it to the next service. And don't know why that is. Just how we roll, just being real. And I just feel maybe after we had breakfast and gotten acclimated and done all the things, afternoon, it would just be easier, maybe just mom life. Yeah, I knew it's funny around church. I actually told my church, I'm really dying for them to let me do worship with breath work and prayer. We'll see. I've talked to them about it. They're kind of open, kind of not. But I actually feel the churches need to wake up a lot when it comes to holistic healing and helping people, understand how much deeper we can get when it comes to the connection with God. And it doesn't have to just be what church is. So that's something I'm working on. Trying to spread the message in that it's, because I feel a lot of people too are hey, I don't want to go into those 4 walls. It is not comfortable. I get that. I didn't used to want to either years ago. And I want people to understand God is there no matter what. As long as you can talk to God, God's going to hear you. God's going to see you. He's going to find you.
Absolutely. Coffee, good for you, bad for you?
Don't drink it. Bad for you. No judgment, but I gave it up years ago. Something God put on my heart to, stop doing. I also went sober in 2020, something God also told me to do. Also not good for you, for a reason that's called spirits. And so, yeah, coffee, no good. I know, of course, there's more natural ones that I've seen out there that are the mushroom and things like that. I think those are fine. But actual coffee, yeah, no good because a lot of mold is in most of them. And also it speeds up, all the, your heart and, your circular system. And also too, I'm hearing it can really mess up your gut. I've had a lot of people actually do a lot of research on how much it is messing up your gut health. So I would just say no to coffee and find something else that's going to give you a natural stimulant.
What's the most out there health trend that you've ever tried?
Out there health trend. Oh gosh. Remember the coffee enemas? Speaking of coffee,
I can't say I do.
well, they were like, I'm not going to explain them, but they were like a super trending thing. And when I was a celebrity word of stylist, I had a ton of clients that were like UFC and like bunch of like different sports stuff, like that were the models and the people, and they all were trying them. And so they got me to try it with them. And I'm not going to lie, I probably wouldn't do it again, but it definitely was a good detox. It was definitely an interesting experience. They
What's the
swore
most?
by them. They were like doing them all the time.
Jeez, maybe I need to try it. What's the most simple, concrete one thing that someone can do to improve their life?
Oh, get right with God, man. I feel like, and I know that's like, sounds so preachy, but like seriously, I did not have a relationship with God for many, many years. For those that don't know, I was very much, just away from God. I was running the opposite direction for a long time. And yeah, breathwork really helped me, and nervous system regulation, all the holistic healing did so much for me in so many ways. But when my life truly transformed and changed, it was my relationship with God. It was learning the true living God and finding that peace that is beyond understanding. And it makes me emotional because I wish I had done it sooner, because my life completely transformed and changed.
What's one healthy thing that you hate doing the most?
Working out, which is terrible, but I don't know. I get bored working out. I just get just out. Like, I don't know. I do a routine and then I get bored by it. I go to a place called Burn here in Tennessee, and like, I like that they change it up because then I don't get bored. But even if I do like the same thing for like the first 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, we're moving on to the next thing. It's just my personality. I like to do many projects, I like to be doing many things. So yeah, let's say working out. Just not. I do it because I know it's good for me, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah. What are the most important supplements that everyone should take?
Yeah, I would say, taking something for your gut health is number one. Like, just, whether, like I said, whether it be, the Amari products that I'm, aligned with and partnered with, which you could probably reach out to me for, or anyone that's got, true good gut health products. And what I mean by that is like that they are, above organic standards. They're clean. They don't use, they don't have pesticides around them because you don't want to put more stuff into your body. Like, they've got to be a clean, and hopefully are just like fruits and herbs and veggies. They're not anything else. They're just pure. So that would be one. Another one I would say turmeric is really, really powerful and super healing for the body, whether you put it on your meal or you take it by itself. Super, super helpful. And then I would say, let's see, what's another one? Magnesium. I take magnesium every single day, give it to my kids, my husband. It's so good. And most of us are lacking in magnesium. Definitely magnesium.
Last question. What's next for Ali?
What's next? Oh gosh, that's a burning question because I feel like there's a lot next for me. So I have not really publicly shared this, but I'll share it with you, Conrad, because I feel called to. I've been writing a book, and it's all about my journey and basically coming into breath work and everything. So stay tuned. I finally finished it, and I'm in the process of getting it together and out there. So that's definitely in the near future as God aligns things. And then I've actually started writing a second book before this book finished because I felt so called to continue the journey. Working on some new group programs online for people that really want to find God outside of those four, walls of church, but still want the worship, and they want to find deeper faith and kind of want to combine breath work with scripture, with worship, with all of it. I'm trying to really be disruptive in this space now and bring all of that together for people to find that deeper faith and come into communities. So some new programs and courses in that. And also working on my first Christ-centered retreat. I've done retreats before that were just kind of holistic healing, but God has told me it's time to focus on Christ-centered retreats. So working on what that even looks like, who I even work with to do that. So that's brand new kind of in my sphere, but something I've been getting a lot of visions around. So hoping to bring that, to life in the near future.
Ali, you mentioned we might be able to do a quick breath work. Could we go through that together?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. All right. So all I want to say is if you're driving, come back to this place, please, because you can't be driving and doing breath work. Other than that, go ahead and just sit down or lay down so that you are comfortable. Drop your shoulders, just get into a grounded space. Close your eyes if you feel called to, or pick a spot on the wall. And first, I just want to pray for us all. So we'll just say, Heavenly Father, dear Lord, thank you for this space. Thank you for letting us come together in this moment. And please move through and have your way in our mind, body, and spirit in this little mini breathwork that we are going to do, this Holy Spirit breath. Just speak to us and let us receive this deeper healing in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so I want you to just take a deep breath in and blow it out. Drop your shoulders deeper. Take a deep breath in and blow it out. We're just going to do a few more of these before we actually get into the breath work, just to open the body up. Deep breath in and deep breath in and blow it out. On this next one, I want you to just really inhale in deeply for 4 and hold for 4 and hold. And just as you're holding, I want you just to really land here and think about how you're bringing in peace. You're bringing in joy. You're just rewiring your mind into the way God designed you, which is joy and peace and love. And then hold that. And we're going to squeeze into our belly as we hold deeper in this breath. Squeeze into your belly. Just feel your belly squeeze in. You could even squeeze the back of your legs. Just squeeze in. And then as you're squeezing, go ahead and blow out for 8. And then we're going to do that again. Deep breath in and we're holding for 4. And then go ahead and squeeze into the belly. Squeeze into the belly. Continue to squeeze into it. This is the somatic work we talked about. So just squeeze into the belly and then exhale out for 8. We're going to do this a few more. I want you to really get grounded and centered. So drop your shoulders further, drop more into the body. Just feel the breath moving through. The Holy Spirit just move all the way through you. That prayer, that intention to just allow more joy and more love and more peace as you breathe in. Really pull that breath. As you pull that breath, I want you to imagine it's almost like this string that's going from the bottom of your belly all the way up into your chest as you pull and inhale for 4. And then once you have that inhale, go ahead and hold again for 7, squeezing into the belly, squeeze into the body, and then exhale out for 8. Really allow that release. Just trust that you're letting it go. And once more, deep inhale for 4, into the nose, pulling that string, pulling all the way up from the bottom of your belly, all the way up into your chest as you pull in for 4. And as you're holding and just breathing, I want you just to really come into that space of peace, of love, of joy. Squeeze deeper, holding for 7, squeeze into the belly. And then when you're ready, let that deep release for 8. Really release it. Allow the belly to just let go. Let that air go and feel yourself releasing whatever it is that you might be holding. Give it to God. Let it go. Let it flow. Release it completely out of the body. And slowly, slowly roll your shoulders back. Give yourself a little heart massage. Roll those shoulders back. Shake your fingers out. Wiggle your toes. Slowly open your eyes. And come back to the space. Put your hand over your heart for a moment. Just thank God for the renewed breath, for the restoration, for the healing, and come back to your space.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
I feel so at peace.
And that's my biggest thing is like I tell everybody when they ask me, like, what breath work do you do? Like for me, it's why I say Holy Spirit. 'Cause to me, Holy Spirit is peace. And it's like, that is the number one thing I focus on. Yes, I could do all the things because I've been taught. But I feel like that's the most important, and I feel like that's the gift I have, is to help people learn how to come into that deeper peace.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I hope everyone enjoyed it. And speaking of that, when you guys go to my social and you go to my, the link tree of my link in bio, you can click on subscribe to my free newsletter, and you can get actually a free, mini breathwork guide gift that's in there. And Connor, I can also send you the link directly so you can put it in the show notes.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Amazing. And where can people find you who want to learn more?
Yeah, my website's alilevine.com, ALILEVINE.com. All my socials are Ali Levine Design, so just ALILEVINE and the word design all together. My podcast is Awakening with Ali. You could totally book a free call with me if any of this has, intrigued you. You can just do calendly.com/AliLevine.com. Calendly.com/Ali Levine Design. And then you can literally just go on and book a free 15-minute call with me. Jump on, chat with me, tell me what's going on. I'll let you know if I can help you in any way and, support you however I can. And I would just say, DM me. If something resonated for you and you're like, wow, what you said really hit my heart. Like I said, I get lots of DMs, so feel free to slide in and say hi. Don't be weird, but say hi. And let me know, what resonated for you, what maybe the feedback you have is, or what you're going through. And I would love to connect with you and support you. Those are probably the best ways to connect with me. I'm on all socials. I'd say I spend the most time between Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Those are like my 3 main hubs, but I am technically everywhere. So if you find me, I'll find you.
Ali, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Thanks for having me, Conrad. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.